Normally we would have our BAC chair start the meeting for us, but she is unable to attend. You are here from the. We'll go ahead and start. You have the stuff as well, so we can start with our BAC members.
I'll go first. Jonathan Trutt, my second VAC meeting, first one in person. Very excited to be here. My day job is I'm the director of real estate development at Home Forward. That's the housing authority.
Rick DiLoretto, been on years. Yeah. And I'm retired chief executive for the 12 Valley Water District.
Rita Crespon, the senior director for the.
Darren Lee, director of construction.
Dan Young, Chief Operating Officer. Good to see everyone.
Abby?
Oh, sorry, I was listening. Johnny Warren, data analyst.
Steve Simonson, Senior Project Manager. Robert Joel, Senior Project Manager. Damon O'Shea, Senior Project Manager.
Ellen Cusick, project manager at Wilson.
Authorizing Laura, Certified Business Program Manager. David May, Communications Manager for the Final Program.
Lauren Pauling as Senior Manager of Business Operations.
Our agenda for tonight, I did make one change, which is I switched the order. And we'll go ahead and start with the public comment and then the program updates. But then I switched just to go to the first. I think that's a natural segue from the administration. Then once we get through that, we'll go back into an overview update on the 2017 safety. And come back then to 2020 and the infrastructure. Or we can discuss in the middle because we just us. And we did receive a public comment, but it's a public comment for something the BAC has no control, authority, or information about. We will be happy to show that people with email, but it didn't seem. David, did we have any other?
I'll check on that.
As always, if we get anything in between meetings, we can put this on. We share this slide every time, and it makes our auditors happy if we let you know that there are some constraints to our business equity data, which is to say that it's not always 100% real time. We get business equity data based on invoices that have been paid. So we take invoice information, we enter it into the software system, and ask our customers to go in and identify how much of the invoice there is a lag time between when the invoice is made and that information. So sometimes it lags quite a bit. As soon as we get information, we will update, even if that is 8 months down the road, a year down the road, we will continue to also follow up when we see that the information is. Oops. We will start with a little bit of an overview on our equity data. So just our business equity continues to go up for the life of the program. So the numbers that we show, of course, are the cumulative. That's from when we started our 2012 on. And then we also show a rolling 12 month. That is just kind of a way to get a snapshot of what things have been going on in this recent period of activity. However, like everything, business equity goes in waves. So we may see incremental changes. The number we like to look at generally is it's been consistently going up for the last several years. We are continuing to aspire to that 18% goal. And we get closer every time. We do,
I assume it goes yellow just below 18, if you get 17.5, it's still.
that's correct. Yep.
I think you're.
We do err on the side of showing yellow and red. Or maybe not, something that's a substantial.
Right.
But if there's an issue.
Sure.
Be sure that we see.
I'm not familiar with the category NC. Who all knows what's NC?
So NC stands for non-certified.
Oh, okay.
But these are non-certified payments that have been made for credit. Just so that if a business has been certified when they were contracted with us, all the payments that go to them were considered going to the certified business, even if they were without certification in the middle.
Okay.
So we do not go back and mark them as not qualified.
Okay.
Because many of them will graduate.
Right. I
Right?
get it.
They will get bigger than the awards.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do keep them through the course of the contract, and then of course if they come back and work with us in the future, and then once you.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And forgive me if I ask this, but on the workforce equity, are you tracking apprentice hours, journey hours, both?
we do actually get data on apprentice and journey
Okay.
hours. What we report is we have a hard requirement of 20%. So that's the column on the far right. We do also have goals for female participation, not specific to apprenticeship, but
Okay.
as well as minority. And so those are goals. They're not. We have generally done very well. Minority participation, middle participation. As you can see, we're at 5% goals.
Yeah.
I don't believe any public agencies
Yeah.
in Portland are achieving 14. This is a goal that was put together as part of a group of many of them have some goals. I don't think everyone's achieved. It is definitely something. Budgets. So the first page that we're going to show you is the 2012 program. You'll see that we put this out by 2012, 2017, 2020. We've reported on each of the programs. And there's a tiny little box there underneath the table that says 99% spent. That has not changed in the year, I guess. We continue to complete some projects with 2012 funding. All of that work is complete that we had previously active. We are continuing at this point to go through and reconcile our system with the district's system of record for what this means is we have a system. If you consider sort of a sandbox in a way, provides much more instruction specific financial information. Workflow for us. The system helps us maintain all of our approvals, pictures of the authority and approval flows. But we then have to translate information to so the reconciliation, we do that on a regular basis with the terms, the process of reconciling right down to the penny budgets. It does take a long time, particularly because 2012 is the first. It's the first one. You know, we have some of our community members like to say the first one. A little lumpy, maybe not fully done. And you know, we're going through and thinking of a lot of things. And we've learned a lot along the way. And I think we've set up 2020 in the best possible way. I'm sure in 2027 or 2034, something's going to come. But it's a process for us to go through. What we have at the moment, we're anticipating a little under 500,000 remaining in 2012. That number could change as we go through. So we always do. When we do have a much better grasp on what that is, then we have a conversation. He said, so 2017 spent 83% of it. That's like 81%. Going pretty quickly along in 2017. We're actually going to start slowing down our spend on that, primarily because we have one project that is split funded between 2017. With our bond funds, we have a requirement, a spend requirement related to arbitrage. We have to spend a certain amount of funding within a certain. We are in the process of trying to meet those arbitrage for the and it is. And so we have shifted all of our spending for things in the big shifted to the 2020 funds so we can move up. When we get to the point where we've met the requirement, we'll look at our timing for shifting. We did, and that is actually one of the other things we'll talk about when we get to the 2020. With 2017, as I think we've mentioned before, the Benson High School modernization and Benson swings, they're all part of the same budget. So when we show them under budget on the Benson swings, we're over budget the Benson modernization by the same amount because it's all part of the same. That's really just to say that we haven't been able to spend on the swings. Is continuing to forecast under. They are getting close to completing the work. That we will, once we get closer to the end, we'll much better sense. I'll add in a minute. McDaniel continues at roughly 2 million under on the shift back and forth a little bit, just as we continue to do some follow-up stuff. We say follow-up stuff to modernizations. That means, for example, first fix, right? So we got there, kids got in, we started using them. There's some minor in pursuing. So those are the kinds of follow-ups. We will also have a larger follow-up project. Athletic fields, are the baseball fields. We have a netting issue where we installed netting. We put in, it was designed in such a way we didn't realize we were going to end up having balls go behind the fence, but into the wind. So this is problematic. And the netting system is but I believe it's two or three.
June 26th.
I'm assuming we have to wait till the kids are out. We've seen some of that in the news, so that's why I bring it up. Wanted to talk a little bit about the forecast. I think it's been mentioned, we have 9 million roughly, each month for under for Lincoln, we'll take 2 for. Notice that there's a forecast of. Currently forecasting. But we also have complaints, and at the moment we have. We've held on to that. Our practice is to generally forecast the whole use of contingency. We're getting to that point where we need to take this. We don't go into as contingency forward. So we are going to have another discussion, a bigger discussion. Sizable amount of money that could be used for other things. I don't know that we're gonna be ready to say it's that much, or like
But I mean,
that would be the max, yes. And it is a good amount of money, and we certainly have we have people who have expressed, projects that they think should be covered on. A lot of discussion. Light fields for Lincoln in particular offsite. But we have not really scheduled the discussion yet. We anticipate it'll be a very public.
Are there time constraints associated with spending whatever savings?
In the sense of, so as long as we've met our core judgments, we've done. But in the sense that any work that we do, we have to study. And so we have to, on the one hand, we're moving for projects, but on the other hand, we also have to administer. So there's an administration. The practical questions in there. These are all things that the other thing that I want to kind of keep separate from that is that 2017 we had 150 million allocated to it. We think of it often. We, out of those 8 categories, we've had some that did not need the full amount of money that was set aside for them initially. Water quality is a good one. We were able to come with a solution water quality, but it's through there and we will actually achieve that result. We've also found that we don't need as much. And so we are going to have a larger going to redistribute several of our board members. Yeah, almost a certain money that we spent. And that is what we are going to really sure that now where that goes at the moment is not fully decided, though I can tell you that it's probably need, so roof projects. And we've only seen. Here with what's allocated with the like category. We've demonstrated using 20 funds that are set aside for moving. But the need is there. So that is what we see here. Any questions? 2020. So in 2020, we've spent 20%. That is up from 16%. Percentages don't always give the magnitude. You consider that our original budget was over $1 billion, 20%. We have been spending very quickly, and we're actually going to be spending more quickly once we get into the summer. We did have a bond sale or something. Out of that bond sale, we got a premium of 40.
Straight.
Another committee, right?
I can probably look it up. You know, I'm sure I can look it up.
We can get that.
I just like, you knew it off the top. No,
I have a lot of numbers in my.
That's- Oh,
it's like your word's sticking. Don't worry about it, Dan. I'm good.
I just might have it in my notes, but maybe not.
We've noted that in the report. However, at the time that we pulled the data for the report, just to sort of we pulled data from insurance officers. With all kinds of different reports that we pulled, all that information. So it's noted in there. We also were adding some interest earnings. Here, so I noted that as well, but we will let you know when it's time. And kind of moving on, so that's I like to say there's good news and bad news. That was the good news. We're gonna move on to kind of where we are with cost impacts out in the marketplace. But so we bid out 8 roof projects this season. Every single one of those came with the higher budget. So what we did do is we did transfer $5 million of program contingency into our roofing bucket. And I think, you know, the takeaway is inflation continues to be and we are confident in terms of issues necessarily bid packages and consistent between theirs. We typically have 2. We are trying to overcome that. When you think about the impact that we have on the so that's probably a good time to start talking about it. Your anticipated budget is going to. We mentioned, I think, when we first the GMP amendment you're budgeted for it. We were trying very hard as the budget team. So it basically telling me they were doing all the work. As far as trying to stay within the budget overall. Top of that, they discovered in the course of construction that there were a huge number of dry wells. And you know, these are things that you, no matter how many holes you dig, you're not going to find them all. So that had impacts, of course, the cost will also. I think it did mention that they are pushing timeline on. They are confident they're going to get it on time. From a budget perspective, the other place where we saw a substantial was Harrison Park. And so one of the reasons I moved Harrison Park a little bit of the budget, and then we can tell you a little bit. So Harrison Park, when we first started with the 2020 loan, we had a bucket of funds that were set aside for capacity. And capacity projects were intended, and Dan will kick in and interrupt me if I say anything. They were intended to address things like outreach. What sorts of facility improvements would we need to accommodate? We didn't. So the amount of money set aside. We also had another project for the access. In the process of going through and sort of scoping in the existing. Built. So the education solutions, there's the spaces that was being put into it's things like science cluster. There are different requirements. Other pictures, very different. So we found that there were changes for the event specs. Building itself had a substantial number of issues. And, you know, I think we've added some pieces in because there were issues on multiple levels. Before we got to that point, structural turned out to be a pretty easy. We knew already that there were problems because the floors are literally investigated. In fact, we could not actually replace finished floors without upgrading the structure.
Or I should. Not that far.
It's not that far,
Not that
but
that challenging.
we'll say the concrete.
Okay.
There are unique spaces in Harrison Park. There were changes made over time. There were classrooms that were just on that side. It's there's a lot that needed to be done. The hallways and the way where you can smell. That generally indicates that there's some finishes that. In addition to that, we needed to ensure that code the fixtures, changing our fixtures to. We were addressing. All user restrooms. So there were a number of things that can. I also knew that Harrison Park was at the top of our list. The very top right there in the top two, schools that had to be. So in the process of looking at that, we decided if we were already going to be going in and addressing structural finishes, lighting, that we should pull in these other scopes and work. Mechanical system. Part of that is saying that added in scope of work from our security. It's, they're utilizing funds from each of us. But the verdict down the project. So we have multiple things. You're still going to have substantial. And the number that I put in the capacity report is roughly 19 million. I'm going to say roughly. We have not. We don't have an exact number. We are still working through what the contributions are for technology. Just working through all those little nuances of the process. We have that. We'll give you that burden. I wanted to be upfront that there's a.
But you had your 10 and 19.
No, the 19 is
Oh, the 19.
of what comes from contingency.
So
Total project. We'll go and look at the capacity and I think we anticipate will be reporting. So. Just this is really just to show you the total budget amounts of talent that we're going to see. I'm actually going to come back to these in a minute. I'm going to share. I added these in so last minute, but they give you a little bit of a sense of the floor plan. You can see that it's a fairly large and sprawling building.
This is theirs.
This is Harrison Park. So in East Cross Street.
87th division. Northland division on 87th.
There are a number of courtyards that we also will be dealing with. Vegetation. There is quite a bit of work that's going to occur. Usable features to create. Really improve. I will share this with you afterward. There's some information on types of things that. And then here is the cover sheet for the or and you can see there in course tangle. We're gonna keep working.
Good job, Jackson. Places.
Uh,
It's under asbestos.
yes, we often touch. Prior to the. But certainly not 65. I think while you're looking for that, maybe we could ask Damon to just kind of give us a quick overview of where they are with Nickerson. And this is really here. I'm gonna, Damon, I'm gonna go ahead and drop you over to the phasing. So, you know,
This spring and just went through the board on 23rd. And so Inline Construction is our general contractor. And what that, you sit there to give you a start and stop of this. Obviously, they're gonna start as soon as school's out. Already started the submittal process right now. The start will be in the summer and substantial completion by the end of 2024. And in segments, the yellow segment you'll see is starting this summer and will be done before school starts. Those classrooms and every admin area will be done except for mechanical work. Mechanical ductwork will be installed in these areas, but mechanical won't come online until next year. Transformer and power is brought to the site. We actually today also, Leah, the principal, is fantastic. The abatement's a big part of this, right? To finish off the abatement, and we are going to abate everything this summer. And we even got at the other part of the admin, which is on the left side, to the left of the yellow little block of blue. There is part of their admin office. We will be including that, but it'll go. You'll see the yellow will be start, stop, turn back over to school. Then when school starts, we are being strategic. This is going to be live all time. Students and teachers work throughout the school year with proper barriers, including sound barriers as well. And we'll be working in the green area first. The green area will be turned over in spring of 24. And then we'll roll into the red, start spring of 24, and be finished by fall of 24. Meaning substantial completion. There'll be some knick-knack things to going to commissioning, those kinds of things from mechanical equipment. And then anything extra, there's not a lot of outside work, extra work, but that'll take place in summer of 2020. But yeah, so that's kind of the quick overview. But to get a grasp of what's going to happen in each classroom, figure the abatement, like a scope of work in the classroom. Abatement, which is the demolition, it's going to get all new tech, which Marina mentioned. Security, it'll get finished work as far as walls, floors, FF&E, students, teacher, desk, chairs, that kind of stuff. The whole room will be done. That's going to be a lot of work that they'll do in each room. It doesn't show it when you just look at it, but if you list out the scope of work that's got to happen from abatement to demo to patching up the walls and cleaning it up and adding the new tech, basic teaching wall. It's a lot of substantial amount of work.
we did start with the phase. That is the one. Improved the visibility of the administrative office, which on the floor plan is just to the left of yellow. There's no administrative office there, and you can see sort of the entry. We added visibility, like when So we've actually already done work in that area. We've done some work. So we tried to divide out chunks, but unfortunately we cannot do all of it.
Chris, as the scope grows, you learn more and more. What contracting method did you go low bid with this scope of work, or did you end up going?
From the middle.
Oh, really? Good.
We did qualify our bidders. We made sure that they met it. Definitely an alternative bid method. But it is low bid. There was actually a competitive, there's an interview process, both written proposal and interview process. And they were scored by our committee.
There's see this. Well, it's- It's really important us to get. Was going to.
But this is different. Packet, so this we had a middle school conversion under asbestos for 32 months. And it said Harrison Park, 32. Then we had 32,500 under security. It's not in the packet we got tonight, so. I'm just fine, I just. Yeah, so
Middle school conversion. I'm not sure which, I'll have to go and actually.
is it also- I mean, if this is the right 1%. That's what I thought was 66 billion. Then also going to show you like. Build a new school.
Yeah.
We could, and we would,
If you have
Yeah.
that option.
if we had that option, yeah.
So this is more up to date.
And if you're good with Harrison Park to. The 2017 safety, I'm gonna turn it over to here. We were really only down to it. Rather than each of those for project managers.
So the lead paint stabilization was quite the project. I think in the original assessment that drove the project was 14,000. All of our district buildings. After 5 running on 6 years of this, we're down to the last. Did it in phases, started with the critical, which is the Head Starts, the kindergarten, the interior. Got about a year into it. That was with a group of internal painters, bond painters. Once we started to get it into the area, added IDIQ contractors. We're very successful in that project, but the TLM will be wrapping up by the end of the year. Within that, going back to some of the original phase 1 areas just to double check been so long. So program will still be project.
I have a number. Working on it.
Yep. Some of the this over go to each of the slides.
Just, read it.
Keep this.
Just-
some of the concern you'll see with the slides and some of these, like especially equity, we really don't have control of these type of projects. Other than maybe our consultants that select, other than that.
I did want to ask a question. So I'm curious, all these. WB is pretty high number. Is this one particular consultant that did all these projects, or is it?
So it depends on the type of thing. So asbestos is a good example there. They're fairly common.
So it wasn't just one firm did it all. 15 years there was.
Questions on the lead paint? Asbestos, those, the original bond, we were estimating to get to is 40 sites. We have, after this summer, we completed at least 30, but several of those, at least 10 or more phases, 2-phase projects. So much project, not 3 months in the summer, so after the summer, we'll look at that goal. Sites we visited with that, and we have 8 projects this year that are under contract. Again, with some of the this type of work, we have to shut down mechanical system. As of science, we end up having to close the building. So saturated contract. Us every construction project out there want this to happen first. So, it's been going very successful, and I haven't really had any major safety issues. And we're already heavy into survey and design. Excellent. We do some of this, some things that we can with brakes. Marketing. A lot of corridors, entryway to get it done. Do what we can. Take on some smaller stuff. Corridors. All spaces. Secure schools, that was our first round, 2017 security upgrade. So what that entailed was went to every school in the district that needed to upgrade it. Access control system, security, which tied in cameras on the posts and the others. Yes, and monitors for control that access. That was 3 different packages, approximately 30 sites each. You can imagine just a job walk. We actually we used a bus for the week-long pre-bid walk. And after about the second day, all the contractors it's just they've seen enough. But there's as many as the types of buildings.
I see that at my kids' school.
But that project just wrapped up. We got all the quite a bit ago. We got all the access control done, but then we found 2 schools, Buckman and Beaumont and Cleveland, that needed some exterior fencing with some access. So those were the last 2 projects.
All the schools are.
Any questions on the water quality? That was another big animal. We we went from about 6,000 drinking water fixtures in the district down to about 2,000. And we had an engineer involved, and we basically custom built LK fixtures with high use sediment handling. Like, filter up to 6,000 gallons per lead. And we have completed all of the district buildings, exception of this one, and a smattering of a few miscellaneous class bits and pieces. Single. 12 other sites, custom stuff like gooseneck.
It's not your water.
At every pot of water, all tank. Our goal that we set out when we started a pilot project, custom filters, was that our target was that we get to less than 1 part per billion testing. Regulatory limit right now. Obviously, it's a pretty amazing success story. Once we're finished this.
And as far as we know, we're probably only one of a handful of districts. Going from where we started to where we are. So
Oh. They didn't provide you rates. No. Yeah, so we are looking. One of the get my system. We're looking at it at the moment. Work.
Long to the filters. We just get the last 6,000 gallons.
You know, I sent a picture around the other day. If you imagine a metal container about the size of this room, bigger, twice the size, about 6,000 gallons.
Really?
And we have also installed flow meters on. So when we test them, and placing them internally every summer. And most of them, so once a year, and most of them are in the like 2,000 to 3,000 range. Higher.
Yeah. Yeah, what's behind the question is I imagine it's a significant maintenance routine of just build a system and now you got.
Don't change this filter. That stuff that gets back. But it doesn't have any. Those changes, you gotta change.
Yeah. The maintenance is on it. We already did half from last year. All of the conditions that come down.
there's also why it's important to reducing the number of full.
Yeah, it's just.
6,000 to reduce pre this project, you said there's roughly 6,000 fixtures.
Right.
So it's intentional to find like how many each school's gonna need that bottle as well,
Right.
and then.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, ready to move on to 2020? We are gonna start with EDA and spending because they kind of go hand in hand. And so I have 2 slides up here. 4 slides, pages each. One for ADA, one for sped. But I'm really just gonna kind of leave it for elephant times. So that's what.
Okay, well, I'll pick it up with the ADA, so, I guess the first part I'll talk about is the, construction of accessibility improvements at almost 80 sites. We divvied it up into 2 sort of phases. Phase 1 is the Title I TSL CSI schools. And there are 39 schools in that group, which we hope to start construction in the first bid package in June. So we divvied up into 4 packages. The first package has some sped work included. Well, let me back up. So some sped work is also included in these packages of construction. And that includes dedicated restrooms for intensive skills classrooms, as well as tunable, dimmable LED lighting in all the sped classrooms and learning centers. So we
Is
sort of
that important? I mean, I don't.
it is for people with neurodivergence, the fluorescents really make it difficult for them to concentrate. There's buzz of the ballast, and to be able to dim it and tune the color is really, really important. So those are 2 parts of the sped work that are happening concurrent with the ADA work or the accessibility work. The first package, so we divided it up into 4 packages. The first package includes the intensive skills restrooms, and which we really want to take advantage of the full 2 months of construction summer fund. So we received that bid came in a couple of weeks ago. We selected the contractor, waiting for the contract to go before the board. The other 3 packages, one is 9 schools, and they're sort of more centrally located. And then there are 2 other packages of 11 schools each, one in north and northeast, and the other one is southeast. The package 1B, is I'm calling it, the 8 schools that are centrally located. That bid is due tomorrow. And then the other 2 packages, the last 2 packages, those bids are due on the 13th and the 15th of June.
You have the same problem with this that you had.
They were over. The first bid that came in, we've only received one
Sorry.
bids on 1 package, but the first bids that came in were both over. What we had about $1.5 million more than what we had budgeted, and that's just for construction costs. So then there's the other things that were around that. So yeah, we're hoping that the bids for the other ones. I think that maybe one of the things that, well, I'm not even using it. I'll just shut up about that.
Sorry.
So we don't expect all of the construction to be done over the summer. I essentially divided it up into 2 sort of groups, like disruptive work needs to happen over the summer, and then non-disruptive work can happen during the school year. And that's things like, installing handrails and exterior ramps. Things like that. I can't think of anything about yet. Actually installing the stage lift, but we'll do there's a lot of stage lifts. We've installed. We'll do all the prep work to get it set up, and then when the stage lift comes in, they can just roll it in, put it in place. So the goal is to have all of that done by the end of December. And we'll start planning for phase 2 in August and get those bids out a little bit earlier for the summer work next year. There are fewer intensive skills restrooms that we in the phase 2 schools. But we still want to take as much advantage of that summer construction.
So, State high schools are included.
No,
They're not.
No.
Oh, they weren't, okay.
no,
Never
no.
mind.
Well,
High schools.
I take that back. Some work at high schools, Cleveland and Wells.
But I was just gonna ask, so are we spending money at 2 schools?
Yes, because in fairness, we don't have funding.
Right, okay, that's. Right, well, hang on, we'll have it here.
Sure. You guys are welcome.
Go ahead, 10 years.
But Cleveland and Wells are both in that segment.
Right, okay, and you're right there too.
So, and the work we're doing, it's not, we're not installing elevators. We're, replacing a few inaccessible sinks with accessible sinks and adding rails. In the case of door hardware, we're putting levers on. So it's not, yeah, we're not doing massive work. So that's the ADA construction portion. Do you guys have any other questions about that? The other part of the accessibility, the work that we're doing that's combined with some security is replacing all of the knobs with levers that also lock from the interior of the classroom as opposed to locking from the exterior of the classroom. So they started installation, let's say beginning December. We've got 13 schools completed, excluding some doors that contain hazardous materials that we need to replace the doors. And that work will happen over the summer. I've got 3 that are ready for punch walks, which I'm going to do this week. We've got 27 sites that have all of the levers on their classrooms completed. They just have to go back and do the exit devices, which are a little bit more complicated, some old and so total that's 43 done or partially done. And then I think things are trucking along fairly nicely. I think once the students are out of the school, they'll move even more quickly on getting the exit devices installed. So we'll see that pick up in the next 2 weeks or after the biggest concern are the hazardous material doors. There are at least 250 doors that are either known hazardous material, asbestos boards, or suspected at 33 different sites. So that's the one thing that I'd love to have this done before school starts in September, but I'm cautiously optimistic that. No. Yes. A lot of doors. And then the last special education part is the furniture. So part of what was funded by the bond was new furniture specific for special education learning environments. We started working with a consultant a couple of years ago, and we installed a test fit in 6 different classroom types over the winter. Our consultant gathered feedback and prepared a report on what worked well and what didn't work well. And we put out an RFP in January to find a vendor to purchase the furniture from, and we are on schedule to install 29 classrooms before school starts in August, and then we should have another 54 done by the end of the year, with a total of 119 done by the end of spring break 2024, and then we'll do the remaining about 80 before the end of summer.
Darren is also going to.
Yeah, so the new 2020 bond security work is upgrading some existing cameras and adding. And also intrusion alarm system.
This is an addition.
Yeah, that was 2017 security.
Oh, that's when you said it was done. You met class.
2020 is kicking off.
Okay.
Different types of person access control. Intrusion alarms. Alarm sensors. And we are at the tail end of design for our first package, 15 schools. It's going out to bid here in the next couple weeks. Most of that is determined by our current stakeholder, security, facilities and maintenance. They use a lot of different criteria. Like we did in our last security project. Also TSI.
These reports.
Oh,
Yeah.
All the way. This is-
So that first bid package will be out here in a couple of weeks, and then we are continuing that design bid process. That's about 30 sites. Takes quite a bit of time to walk around the site with security. Takes same story.
I'm gonna do that, so Robert's gonna talk to you about the seismic work.
Well, overall, we've been pretty successful with our seismic efforts. We managed to finish elect this past fall, or actually going into the end of the year, just in time to go into that length with mechanical and make it there. We completed the first phase of the creative science seismic. Great campus, great features. We've got a real good contractor, went over really well. And we are starting the second phase in a couple of weeks, really. Contractor has been in there working throughout the year, just doing what he can, trying to maintain schedule. One thing we did come across was a piece of art that we had design-wise was indicated to be removed and reinstalled, and a 16-foot piece of ceramic tile on the wall does not remove very easy. We managed to come up with a design, so we're not removing it. Worked with the artist, and she had installed it in '97. So we were able to track her down, worked out really good. Learned a lot, learned something that we need to pay better attention to when we're doing our upgrades. And getting ready, really excited about getting that one moving on and moving down, done. Getting complete. That is Creative Science is a building. I should start calling it Clark. Because Creative Science is a building that Harrison Park people will be moving out into Creative Science, and then Creative Science folks, some of them will be moving into Bridger. And it's been interesting trying to get this all scheduled and figured out who's working with what, who's doing what. But we have a pretty good plan together. Feeling really good about that. And lastly, we are very soon going to be issuing an RFP for the design for Marysville SRGP. Could go out the next week or so. Any questions?
To kind of provide a little. I think state offers grants every year. Several, we did several lots. Also can't remember exactly how many it is. But we did apply this year. And for the first time, however, did not receive. Those grant amounts. Change on the seismic project. We have opted to move forward with some work from the church. Probably made it black. here. And for the box. 6 million. Totally ready. Because it makes it purchase. And so we could.
It's the worst ones. So were these the worst schools?
So it's a nuanced process, we should just say. The SRGP program has criteria they utilize. And so these are the rules that do participate. Period. Now we have priorities come, just unreinforced basis votes are totally. So always the beyond that, we have we are in the process of starting a prioritization. News regarding something.
So for our roofs, as you can see, we've got a very busy summer. We have multiple roofs going on. Some of them are carryovers from last summer that were, we've either had a few unforeseen conditions or procurement issues at Lake Glencoe and Reiki. The rest of those schools in the white are all projects that are fairly large re-roofs. Most of them are either full site or at least half site re-roofs. They were all bid this last spring, and as Marina has said, they all came in over our initial budgets. Unfortunately, I think that's in large part due to the inflation that we've been seeing. I do think some of the lumber costs have come down some compared to where they were at in previous years, but we're still seeing the high labor costs across the board.
The original budget is 6, we're now at 70. Is that?
It added.
Yeah, it's a significant amount of work that we have going on this summer that really eats up a lot of the labor pool of both the smaller GC contractors and the and many of these are a bit more complex roofs with clay tile roof systems. A few more interesting roof shapes that we don't typically have to deal with that have presented an interesting design. I'll take the first half of mechanical and hand it to Robert for the second half. So Bridger, we just got bids back. That bid at 6.6 million, I believe. So it's about $1 million over our initial budget. That was right in line with where some of the lower bids that we originally had bid Bridger back in the fall of 2022. But the low bidders were we weren't able to contract with them because they weren't qualified. But we rebid that project this summer for a start in summer 2024. And the low bid was 6.6 million with the local mechanical contractor as the lead contractor on it. We'll be starting contracting with them here very shortly, hopefully getting them under contract sometime in July. So we can start with another long lead item. This is pretty similar to what we're looking at for Kelly project. Kelly actually bids tomorrow. I'm expecting that one to be right around where Marina is showing it at the 1 million. It's definitely higher than what we had originally anticipated. Part of that is because the city of Portland is requiring fire sprinkler upgrades at that. Well,
We have Harrison Park for 11.5 million. That's not. So it's
Other
Yeah.
sources.
moving on to Lent Mechanical. It's falling right along the same lines as Kelly. I'm bidding it relatively soon. We have concerns with procurement, just like Kelly, and just like Richard. We won't be able to actually start construction until next summer. We have transformers that are long lead items, switchboards that are long lead items. Just a lot of long lead items, even though things have generally gotten better. Originally, we were quoted 44 weeks for a switchboard. It's kind of hard to do in a summer. We have worked with the staff on site, and currently we may have the opportunity. Notice I say currently, and notice I say may have the opportunity to rotate in and out of the annex building there. It's a 5-classroom building that is relatively underused. So we're trying to figure out a way we can get in there and potentially work starting next summer and just work through. There's still a lot of logistics with that. Working with the contractor will be huge in that regard. That's anticipated. It's a little more costly than the other projects. It's, with the exception of the addition to Harrison Park, it is a twin. It's rather stretched out, rather long. So we're going to just do the best we can to get everything we can when there are no kids and get it done.
The fire sprinklers that keep coming up.
Yep.
Yeah,
We ended up with it at Lent too. I forgot to mention that.
I'm sure this is a ignorant question. Imagine that like fire suppression technology changed that much when you've got water coming out of a sprinkler head. So I'm trying to, and I see a little bit in our world, in the multifamily world, where we hear that, and then we're sometimes able to cut it off in rehabs. I'm just curious. It's coming up more. Or do you feel like in terms of the safety of the buildings and users that these upgrades and sprinkler systems are actually leading to better physical plants?
The funny thing is that the sprinkler upgrades really aren't there for the building occupants. It's really there to protect the building until the fire department can come
Until the fire.
put it out. The 3 buildings that we're adding, the 2 currently either have an extremely limited fire sprinkler system
Okay.
or no sprinkler system at all.
None at all, I
Yeah.
understand. but- Okay.
They were mostly all operating under the old standard 2 agreements that have now expired with the city of Portland. And so as part of the city permitting requirements, many of our infrastructure projects like the seismic upgrades, the roof replacements, those are exempted from the fire sprinkler requirements, but for mechanical, they said, no, this is a big enough upgrade. You guys need to go and take care of it.
Okay. Thank you, that context.
They did actually work with us to.
Okay, yeah,
Different states in each of our forms.
yeah.
So there's a good conversation there. Hear that we have a lot of needs. Some of those other needs may be. That's what.
Fact that there's a discussion.
Yeah.
The fact that there's a conversation about some of those mission work. They're actually
They
engaging in
were
dialogue.
very
Okay.
good at working with this. Great conversation. Now, I did leave some time for discussion if either of you have additional questions. But if you don't, then we can adjourn.
I do have a credit for our information, trying to keep people between here and knowing how. But one of the, it's not in the packet, but I track best I can what happens with the Portland Clean Energy Fund, because that is an evergreen source of money and it's a lot of money. Improvements, and I saw that there was an allocation for PPS. Something like $16-ish million.
I just heard about that
Yeah.
today from Karen, so. I can give a little bit, so,
Yeah, it's curious.
yeah, it's 16 plus, actually, I think 16, I'm gonna get this for the capital, and then there was like education.
Okay,
And so, details are thin at the moment.
sure.
But we do anticipate having these funds available. The district class, climate crisis response policy. We're in the process of implementing all the different plans to put that in place. So we see that as, you know, a funder in large part of the response to the climate policy. We anticipate they will be restricted funds, of course. The disbursement of the funds is still something that's going to be worked out. We expect that they'll be also probably specific to certain states. So those are just some of the variables that we're working through, but
Yeah,
yeah, we're very excited about it.
it's great. Yeah, I know I brought it one of the units. It's this is one person speaking. It's a lot of money that they are trying to. They have been trying to push out a little bit at a time.
Yeah,
And they can't get it out the door fast enough, and so I really wonder if they're gonna come back and take on more.
yeah.
You know, 2 or 3 years from now, as we're looking at solar roofs or, you know, any number of things.
What's interesting is we have funds from the SP 1149, but the Cool Schools Fund, and we've used those for years. And we basically take care of all the low hanging projects. And almost to be able to use those funds, we need to have matching funds. And often that has to come from non-bond, well, of course, there's for like general fund. That's very few funds. So we see actually this bit as a multiplier. We actually use those funds to use these other SP 1149 funds that we haven't used in the last couple of years.
Good, right?
That adjourns this meeting.